All right. Good morning, everybody. So today we're gonna be looking at how to create a reusable modal in React.js. I prepared this little document to walk you through what we're going to be doing today. First off, you can have a look at the repository at this URL. Yeah, you can find all the code to see what we did, or to download, or to recreate. Hopefully, you're going to recreate that while watching the video. Okay, so first off, we're going to be looking at what is a modal as a UX UI component, and how it looks like. Probably you've seen that in the preview, but still, I'm just going to quickly walk you through that. And then we're going to start implementing the component. So we're going to start with the open and close behavior, how to that is done in the parent, how to do that, how to open it, how to close it, and then we're going to start implementing the actual UI components, which are first the background, and then the modal or the modal content itself. And with that, you could say the basic implementation is done, but we're not going to stop there. There's some bonus points that I wanna touch on. First, on when clicking outside the modal to close it, you could also implement the escape key to close the modal. Yeah, in a similar way. Then second, preventing the scroll on the website while the modal is open. And then last, how why we're rendering the modal outside of the current DOM context, which I'm going to talk about when implementing the modal. Okay, so don't worry too much about this. Yeah, so let's have a look at the modal itself, what it is, how it looks like. So a modal basically is an overlay, right? So usually you have your normal website. This is a different app that I'm working on, but you have a normal website, and then you click a button, and then there's this pop-up, or yeah, we like to call it modal. And then maybe you would enter your payment information or whatever you want to do in there, right? And then you can close that and you go back to your normal website, or app in this specific case. Yeah, and as you can see, if I click on the background here, I close the modal, so we're going to do that as well. All right, so let's get started with the actual implementation. I did base this on the last video that I did, which is the React starter. So if you wanna code along, you can just clone this repository and then get started. You want to do npm install and then npm run dev, which I already did, so I have that open here. Okay, let's see. We have we have this React file here, this React component. It's just one file in our application right now, and I'm going to be using that. Later on, you probably want to use that somewhere else, but still. So we want to start with having an open and close behavior, right? So obviously we don't want our modal to be open at all times. We usually want a button or any other event to open or trigger the modal to open. Okay, and then how we do that is simply by having a state. Right, so we can use state, that's the hook. Hopefully you know that. So open, set open. And at first it's gonna be closed, and then we're gonna add a button that says open the modal. Okay, I'm not gonna style that. You can style it however you want. And when we click it, we want to set the state to open. Okay. And then first off, we're just going to console log that to see if it works. So I have the browser on the left side here, and at first is open is false. And then if I click that, oh well, we do have an error. set state true. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so it's false, and then when we click that, is open is true. Perfect. Now, yeah, that's the first step actually. So let's check back. Next up is the background component, and this is so the open close behavior usually is in the parent. We're gonna access that later on in the modal component itself. We're gonna see how that works, but yeah, we need the state to be in the parent to know if the actual if the modal is open or not. Okay, so let's create the modal component itself. I'm gonna create a component here and have a basic React structure. And then, yeah, so what we're gonna need is open, and then on close, well, you can call that however you want, maybe just close, I don't know. But yeah, this specifies if the modal is open or not. And then the second one is a function that triggers the modal to close. So we're going to use that as followed. I'm going to import the modal from components modal. There we go. And then I'm going to render it, right? Well, I'm not going to put anything in there. Just going to have the state pass through, and then the close function is going to be similar to what we have on the button. We're going to set open to false, right? So this is how we close it. First, this one triggers it to open, and then to close it, we set the state to false. Okay, there we go. And then we can log that if we want, but I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty certain that's going to work. Okay, and then yeah, let's implement the background component. So I'm going to be using style components as usual, but you can use CSS if you want to, or any other method of styling. Okay, so I'm going to have the background is, yeah, let's just have it a div. Okay, and then yes, I'm going to set the width to 100 viewport width and the height to 100 viewport height. So it just stretches the whole window, right? Let's just quickly check this. So here you can see there's no space on the sides somewhere, right? Because you want to overlay your actual content. Okay, so this is what it does. And then we want to have a background color with the slight tint. So in let me open that again. In this example, I'm using a darker theme. Yeah, usually you want to either have it like a whitish or yeah, white opaque or a slightly transparent background, or black. But in the end, you can use whatever you want, right? So here, I'm going to go with white this time. 255, and then make it 0.8 maybe. Okay, as opacity. Okay, what else do we need? So let's just render that. Okay, so yeah, let's actually look at how this looks like. So if I reload the page, we don't see anything, which is expected because probably it's just here, right? Because I added the modal below the button, and since it's white, we don't really see anything. So let's try to fit that over our whole content, and how we can do that is with position fixed, and then we set the coordinates top 0 and left 0, and then okay, perfect, we're actually overlaying it, but so far it's always visible, so that's not what we want. And then we need to couple that to our is open state. So the easiest way to do that is to say if it's not open, if it's not open, we're not going to return anything, Easy as that, right? So right now it's not open, so we don't see anything. But if we click the button to open it, there we have the modal background at this point in time. Let me maybe just put something here so we can see a bit better that it's overlaying. I'm just gonna have something maybe 800 pixels, and then just grab something from Unsplash. So yeah, this one maybe. Copy image address. There we go. Okay. There we go. We have that image. Now maybe we can see a little bit better that there's actually something on top of our normal content. Okay, so let's maybe inspect that. Okay, so we do have our body, our normal React app, then the content of our normal app, and then at the bottom there's this modal. Perfect. Now there's one thing that is a little bit of a caveat, and we're gonna be talking about that later in the end, which is you don't want to have these overlays in your normal positioning in the DOM, even though it might work. So here it overlays our content. This works, but there might be problems in the future if we just keep it there. So what we want to do is to append it to the end of the body. Well, in theory it doesn't matter, but usually you put it at the end of the body in a separate container, a div usually, so that it doesn't interfere with the normal content. Right? So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna have a div here, and we're gonna call that portal. So this is actually concept behind that, behind the modal. So the modal would be the term for our component that we're going to build, but the actual technical way of implementing is using portals, which is kind of like a portal to another point in the HTML, right? So we're going from the app and further down in there into that portal container. So I'm just going to call it like portal root, and just have that here as a variable. So I'm going to say document get element by ID, and then portal root. Okay, and then there is a helper function that does that for us, right? So we don't need to do that ourselves, but React has a pre-made helper function, as I said, that will take this component and put it in the portal root instead of the normal place where you would expect it. Well, okay, let me open that. Instead of the normal place where you would expect it to be. So this is React DOM create portal. Let me just React create portal. I always forget if it is from React or React DOM. Okay, so it is React DOM. So let me import React DOM from React DOM, and then so the way it works is like so. We return that function called with something inside, right? So we're gonna put our background and then further components inside, and then the DOM node, which in our case is the portal root. So let's do that. React DOM dot create portal, and then the actual content, and then the container that we want to render that in. So let's see if that works. Okay, reload the page because we don't have a way to close that yet. So here, this is our normal context of the app or the application, and then we would expect it to end up in here. Let's see if that works. And there we go. Our modal is now moved to a different part of the app and is extracted from the normal flow. Perfect. So yeah, let's see what the outline was. Yeah, we have the background component, and then now we can move on to the modal content itself. So let us begin with that. Let me just call that content, and this is also gonna be a div. So what we're gonna do here is, so background color is just white, because this is, so let me just show you the reference real quick. So this is what we're gonna build right now. We don't want that to be translucent, right? We want this to be fully opaque, and in our case here, that's just gonna be white. And then also maybe we wanna have some padding. Let's just put 20 pixels. What else? Border radius, maybe to 20 pixels, and then box shadow. Well, okay, let me maybe just show you content, so I'm not just doing that without you knowing what I'm doing. Content, and then, well, this is not gonna be anything right now. Well, actually it is. There it is. And since we have a padding, we actually can see it. But this is not quite what we want. So we would usually want it to be in the center. But that's up to you, right? If you want to have that at the top, you can place it at the top. There's different ways of doing that. I right now will just use Flexbox. So I'm gonna say display flex, justify content center. There's some typo here. And align items center. There we go. And then it is in the middle. Now, yeah, we just have a dot. Why do we have a dot? Because there's no content inside our content component. So there's just a padding and then the border radius, which makes it round. So we might want to put something in there. Now, since it's a reusable component, we want the parent in our actual application to decide what's going to go in there. So if I want to put a heading, yeah, something like that, and maybe a paragraph with something, oh, there we go, with something inside, I want to have that visible, right? Now how we do that in React is with a prop called children. Right, so we can simply accept those children as prop and then render them. And then, oops, that was required. And just with that, we do see our content inside here. Well, the content that we created in the actual application flow and passed to our reusable component. So this is, yeah, this is actually looking quite fine already. What else do we need? So we do have the modal. There is, yeah, maybe one or two things that I would like to change. First off is, for me, it doesn't look quite right to have it go all the way to the end of the window. So maybe what I would do is give the content a max width of maybe 90%, right? Okay, we don't see it on the right side. Let me increase that style. Max width, well, width. Okay, perfect. So we can see where the end of the modal is. Okay, yeah, with the max width adjustment, it's never gonna go all the way to the left or right, and still be in the center due to the flex box in the background. And then let's maybe put a box shadow to make it look a little bit nicer. Just gonna put a random box shadow here. Oh, not quite. Something happening here? I think it's just not visible enough. Oh, okay. Well, that was a little bit too much. Let's go with 0.7. Ah, yeah. I think the RGBA was just off a little bit. Okay, that's still a little bit too much. 5. Let's go with that again. Well, okay. In the end, that's just playing around a little bit. In the end, you can decide what you're gonna do with the shadow here. I think this looks fine now. So let's move on. Next thing. Okay, so we do not have a way to close it right now. Remember, we did pass down a function to close the modal, but we're not actually using it yet. As you can see, it's not highlighted. So yeah, there's different ways of doing that. We're gonna tackle two. One is to always have an X here. So I prepared this X image, so we can use that and just render it. And if we click on that, then it's gonna close the modal. So let's do it. We're gonna have that in the content, so we don't want to have that in the background, but rather in the content itself. And then we're gonna create a header row maybe, and then an image with the source of that image. Import from assets and then close PNG. Very good. Close icon. There we go. Okay, there seems to be something wrong here. Close icon. Well, I think I'm not quite sure what's going on right now. Oh, header row is not defined. Okay, well, it has nothing to do with the bundler. Header row. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, okay. The X is a little bit too big, and it's also on the left side, which is not really great. So there's two ways of doing that. Either we're gonna have a flexbox component and make it so our header row right now is here, right? With the PNG with the icon inside. So we can use that and then put it on the right side. Now this pushes our content further down, which is okay. And maybe you want to implement it in a way that you always have a title here. So you could have a title prop and then always have that title here, right? And this way it does look good. I'm gonna do it a little bit differently here. I'm gonna have the header row be positioned absolutely. So I'm gonna have position absolute and then top maybe 10. Actually, let's put 5 pixels. We're gonna see if that works. Okay, 5 pixels, and this one has to be position relative to set a reference point. So there we go. That looks decent. Well, it's a bit too big. So let's change that real quick. We're gonna have a width of maybe 18 pixels. Well, that's a little bit too small. 26 pixels. I don't know. I mean, you can just play around a little bit, and then you're gonna see how that looks like. And then you might also want to, yeah, I think that should be 10 here. Yeah, and that actually looks quite all right, I would say. Let's inspect that real quick. Yep, there we go. Somehow this is a little bit bigger in height. I mean, 35 instead of 30. I guess that's okay. And then here our wrapper is not affected. Well, we have this this margin. You could argue we don't want that, but whatever. But this is the heading itself. But from the modal component itself, the content is not affected. Very good. Now, final thing, we need to connect that to our close function. So first off, let's have a cursor pointer. Oops. So if we hover over it, we actually get that click cursor. And then next up, what we want to do is, if we click on it, then we want to call the close function. Well, we can just pass it here. So now, if you click on it, hopefully it's going to close. There we go. Perfect. Now, I'm just going to walk you through real quick. The close function comes from the parent, and then it changes that state set open to false. Perfect. So it's not visible anymore. Well, in turn, the variable is open, becomes false, and then we're returning null. Very good. So, yeah, this works very nicely. Maybe one thing, so we do not see that right now, but similar to the width, we don't want the height to be all the way to the top. Okay, with that, the base modal component should be done. So we can open it. We have some content inside that we can dynamically pass in the parent, and then we can also close it. Yeah, so if you want to keep it at that, that's fine. Otherwise, we're gonna continue with some more advanced stuff, which is first, if we click on the background, so this is a common use case, that if you click on the background, you might want to close it, close the modal, similar to when you click on the X or the close icon. So let's go back here in our modal component, and then what we need for that is is an effect. Use effect and use ref. Okay, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna add an event listener on the whole window, basically, and then when we for a click event, and then when we click, we're gonna check, does our click target, or does our content contain the click target? So if we click inside here, then it's fine. And if it's not contained inside this content, so basically the background, then we're going to trigger the close function. So first off, we're going to need the ref for the content. So we're going to use that later. And then an effect, that listens on the is open, because we want to try to be as efficient as possible and say only if it's open we're going to listen on the clicks, right? Because otherwise this is closed and we do other kinds of stuff on the website, and the listener is always running in the background, which is not, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's not the best way of doing it. So we're only going to attach the listener when this is open. So this is what we're going to do with the use effect. And then I'm going to say if it's not open, just return. And then we're going to have a listener. And then also, well, we're going to attach that listener, event listener on click the listener. And then when the component unmounts, well, not when it unmounts, but when it closes. So when this changes to false, we want to remove the event listener. Remove event listener from the document, from the window, because otherwise the more we open and close the modal, we're gonna have more and more event listeners. So that's also not super nice thing. Yeah, okay. Now what we're gonna do in the event listener itself, so in the listener function, we're gonna check if the content ref contains, I think it's called, yeah, contains event.target. Then we're gonna return. We're not gonna do anything, and otherwise we're gonna call the close function. Okay. So let's try that. Now if we click on here, nothing should happen. Oh, content ref contains is not a function because we're gonna have the current. That's how React does it. Okay, so if we click on here, nothing happens. And then if we click on the outside, it closes, perfect. So yeah, the content DOM element is what we have here. And then contains, that's just a native JavaScript function. And we pass in the event.target. This is what the target is, what we actually click on. Right, so here it might be the text or the heading, or in this case, the background. And then if it is inside the content, we do nothing, otherwise we close it. Good. So this is the first bonus point. Click on outside listener. And similarly, similarly, you could do that with a mouse down, a key press listener, if the and check if it is the escape key, right? This is also a common way of doing it. If you press the escape key, then you want it to close. So alternatively, or in addition, you could have add event listener on key down or something like that, or key up, and then check if that key is the escape key. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm sure you can fit in the blanks and check for the escape key. Now next up is prevent scrolling on body. Okay. So a common thing is that your website is not just, as it is in my case, just like a very small website, but rather it could be a longer screen, a longer page with a lot of content. I'm just going to simulate that here with a big paragraph. So now we do have a scrollable website, nothing fancy, but if I open the modal, as you can see, I can still scroll on the website, which is not the end of the world again, but it's not nice. We can do it nicer, I think. So similar to what we did here is we're gonna have something. Well, the scrolling by default comes from the body, right? And the body has overflow auto, I think. So if we set the overflow, and particularly overflow Y, to hidden, you can see that the scroll bar is not there anymore, right? Now if I add that again, the scroll bar is there, or if I remove that property. So this is a solution. We just need to add the overflow Y to hidden for the body. Now, a lazy way to do it would be document body overflow style dot overflow Y is hidden, and then in the cleanup function, unset that again. So that will work. Well, let me do that. Is undefined. Okay, no scrolling. Well, no scrolling. And then, oh, well, we have an error, 45. This is, yeah, probably because it's not there anymore. Let's see. Nope. Well, let us maybe have that here before we close. Still not. Is auto, maybe. Okay. Scroll bar is there. Scroll bar is gone. Scroll bar is there again. Okay. Now, why is that lazy? Why is that a lazy solution? Because you might have a modal, and then maybe you have a second modal on top. So when you close one, this will be called, right? And this will enable us, enable the scrolling on the body again, but there is still the other modal open. And that's not what we want. So in general, it's maybe not the best thing to have two modals open at the same time, but sometimes maybe it's necessary. I don't know. Either way, we want to have a bulletproof solution. And whenever one or more modals are open, we don't want to have we don't want to have the scrolling. So the way we do this is with a nice little feature from style components, which is create global style. And then we're gonna have, how are we gonna call that? Scroll disabler, maybe. And then we're gonna create global styles. Otherwise, I mean, there's probably tons of ways to do that. I found this very nice because we can simply set overflow wide to hidden, right? And then we're gonna have this rendered. Let me just create a portal here. Rendered scroll disabler, rendered as a normal React component. And the way it works is style components will attach this as a style sheet whenever it is rendered. And when it's not rendered, it's going to remove it again, right? So it's a very, very nice declarative way of doing it in a React way, right? So we don't need to fiddle with any of these mount and unmount or special use effect things. We just have a component that does it for us. Now let's see if that works before I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, seems to work just fine. So just to double check, we don't have any of the custom stuff here anymore. And then scrolling is possible. Whenever I open it, it's not possible. And then I close it, it's possible again. Perfect. Very, very good. Okay, let's move on. The final thing is why rendering outside of the current DOM context. So remember that we did this React DOM create portal, which adds the component or renders the component inside our special container here, our portal container. You might be thinking, why would I need that? Because if we do position fixed, it's gonna be working anyway. It's gonna overlay everything in our app, right? Because position fixed will be fixed in reference to the window. So this should work. Let's try that actually. So let's try to not have that React portal, but rather just return return that as a normal React component. And let's see if that still works. It still works, just as before. Now, the problem is, as soon as we add a transform to a parent, let me show you that here. So now our modal is here inside the normal DOM hierarchy. But as soon as I add a transform, so let's say, I don't know, you have a table, and in that table cell, you have a button to open it, but that table also has a transform. So let's see, let's just put it on the button here. Well, no, we have it here. So let's say we are rendering that in a div. Style, and then we're going to transform translate x 50 pixels, just something like that. So let's see what happens when we open the modal. So you can see that it is, I don't know, it's probably somewhere here, but it's definitely not where we want it to be, right? So whenever you have a transform on a parent, that fiddles with your position fixed. So in general, you definitely want to avoid that, and to have a good way of avoidance, or have a bulletproof way, is to simply not have it in the hierarchy at all. That's why people came up with this portal container that is just at the top, well, at the bottom of the body, but in the hierarchy, it's just at the very top. There's nothing more above that. It's just a body, right? So by doing that, let me just keep it that way, and then we're gonna go back and change that back to React create React DOM, sorry, create portal, and then we're gonna need to add the portal root again. And then let's see, hopefully it's gonna work just fine again. And yes, it does work fine again. So yeah, this is the reason why we're using this React portal in the first place. It's a few extra steps in the beginning, but I mean, once you set it up with this reusable component, then it's, yeah, you don't even think about it anymore. Well, hopefully you do, because yeah, these are the special cases, and they're gonna bite you in the end if you don't do this kind of stuff. Yeah, and this concludes the video, the walkthrough of building this reusable modal in React.js. Let me know if you have any questions or how you found this video, and see you in the next one.